Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for joining us here at the TEFL org for this live webinar. My name's Carl. Today, I'm going to be talking a bit about teaching writing. This is part of a series we have done where we've talked about the 4 major skills in language learning: writing, speaking, listening, and reading. I'm in Northern Ireland. Please let me know wherever you are in the world. I'm in Northern Ireland and it's sunny. It's so sunny, I've had to shut the blind. Look at that. You don't often get that in Northern Ireland. Please let me know where you are in the world. Elizabeth, you're always there. We love having you in. Thank you very much. Elizabeth's in Canada. I was going to say Saskatoon. Did I say that right, Elizabeth? Catherine's in Cardiff. Christina's in Hungary. Carol's in Colorado. Tanya's on YouTube. You've all got to be somewhere. This is live on Facebook, YouTube, and I think LinkedIn. Paul is in California. That's an English bloke trying to be cool. Saying that then, not you, Paul, although you're probably a cool guy if you live in Orange County, California. Deborah's also on YouTube. Cristobal is in Colombia. Spinach. We've got Spinach in from South Wales. Hi, Spinach. Vietnam's in Poland. Colombia, New York, Azerbaijan. Megan, you're in Azerbaijan. Megan, I lived in Azerbaijan. I taught in Azerbaijan for a bit. How is Azerbaijan? I can't keep up with everyone. Hello. So my name is Carl. I live and work in Northern Ireland in this spare room. I work in my spare room here. I work as a teacher trainer for the TEFL org. So if you do any online courses with us, or if you do any weekend training courses in Ireland or Northern Ireland, you might get to spend a weekend with me. I work as an examiner of English. I work as an online teacher. And I've been lucky enough to have lived in many places around the world working in TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language. I have worked in China, Japan, Sri Lanka, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Iraq. I've also worked a lot in Spain and Italy. So if you've got any questions at all about teaching English as a foreign language, please do put them into the chat. Now, I do the questions in the order they come in. So if you've got a burning question about English as a foreign language, please put it in the chat. Get in there early, because when I finish my little presentation where I talk about teaching writing, I will get to those questions. Megan, you love Azerbaijan, good, and you married a local. So there you go. That's what brought me to Northern Ireland as well, marriage. Anyway, right, let's get on with this PowerPoint here about teaching writing. So before I get into this, I want to say that writing is not all of the skills. When you're teaching, try and think a little bit in the sub skills. So this is something I've spoken about in the previous webinars where I've talked about reading, listening, and speaking. Don't just try and sort of say, right, today is going to be a speaking lesson, or today it's going to be a listening lesson. You've got to sort of narrow it down a bit, because there's different ways we speak, and you would teach that differently. You know, the way you would teach students to speak on a YouTube video might be different from the way you would teach students to talk in an academic presentation, for example. And it's the same idea with writing. There's lots of different ways we write, and I'm going to go into those a bit. And there's lots of different reasons why the students will come to you. And there's lots, and this would be either if you go work in a school, or you go work online, or you go find your own students one-to-one. Students will say, I want a writing teacher, or I want to do a writing course. But you need to find out exactly why they want writing lessons. Now, the number one reason why students tend to want to learn writing is to pass some sort of exam. So if they're going to go do one of the big English tests that are taken around the world, such as the IELTS test or the Trinity test or the Cambridge or the TOEIC test or the TOEFL test, whatever it might be, there will be a writing paper on it. There will be a writing section with it. And some of these exams are like those international exams, and they would want to take the writing. They'd have to take all the skills. They'd have to do a speaking test, a reading test, a listening test, and a writing test. But they'll do that in order to go study abroad or move abroad or change their job abroad, something like that. That tends to be the main reason to do that. But the other reason that they might come to you is because they want to pass a domestic English exam. So, for example, China has its own exams that are only taken in China at high school level or university level. And, Azerbaijan would have their own, and, Brazil will have their own within the school system. And they might need to pass that test in order to graduate from high school, to pass university, or in order to maybe even get a job, because some countries make the students take an exam in order to get a job within the civil service, for example. So that could be some of the reasons that they want you to do. And obviously, if you go and teach, like to teach someone to pass an exam for writing is different from just getting them to be a good writer of English. It takes different skills. It's good, different sub skills. Another reason is for business classes. So they will come to you, or they will join a class and they'll say they want to improve their business English writing. And that could mean anything, that could be writing Facebook posts to sell their products, or writing Amazon product descriptions. And the way you would write those is very different from how you would write an email, or how you would write an essay, for example. So again, you would have to teach quite specifically for that. So hope you're seeing that it's not just a writing lesson you'd be doing. It's a specific lesson for writing in a specific part of writing. Academic English is another one. So somebody might, or university might employ you, or a student might come to you and say, I'm already enrolled in university and I need to improve my academic English. And within academic English, there's 10,000 word essays. You might have to teach them how to write a 10,000 word essay. There's short summaries that they might need to write. Passing an exam in academic English is very different from passing from handing in, your big long dissertation or a PhD thesis. That's something that you might end up doing. Now, so what do you need to teach? So what you need to do is to do something called a needs analysis. And what you actually teach in your lesson is very dependent on the needs analysis. Right. So what is a needs analysis? It's basically some sort of questionnaire that you give to the students, or you give to the bosses of the people who are paying for the students to come to your class, if it's a business English class. And you will find out what they need to learn English for and what they need to do specifically in writing. And they would say, write emails. They might say, write essays. They might say, just generally want to write some stories, something like that, because you would sort of teach that instead of just generally teaching writing. Now, with lower levels is different, because lower levels, basically, the writing comes in as part of a grammar lesson. So if you're teaching beginner or elementary, a lot of it you'll be teaching is just sort of sentence construction, or just, where to put a full stop, or how to just get the correct grammar within a sentence. But obviously, someone needing to write an academic essay, they should hopefully already know that. And the things that you'd be teaching is a lot more advanced. So then from this needs analysis, you might come out with things like formality. How you write to one person might be more formal than how you write to another person. Okay. You might teach specific grammar or specific punctuation that's involved with the type of writing that you're teaching. Or if it's lower levels, you might just teach them capital letter, full stop, commas maybe, or some punctuation, quotation marks, that kind of thing. So this is what you need to teach. Okay. You might teach some specific vocabulary, and within that, spelling that would work for the type of, so a business English would have a big business English writing would have quite different vocabulary from a letter to a friend, for example. So that's the kind of thing you might teach, specific vocabulary that fits the genre that they're trying to create. A bit more about that in a second. You might teach coherence and cohesion. They go together. What are they? So they're basically things like paragraphing. It's basically how the writing, the text that they're creating, how that flows. So what would be expected in the first paragraph, what would be expected in the second paragraph. Then within the paragraphs, it might be sentences. So teaching phrases such as for example, for instance, firstly, secondly, maybe even teaching some pronouns to show so they're not getting repetitive within their writing. That kind of thing you might need to teach coherence and cohesion. But with the very low levels and with kids, a lot of it comes down to letter and sentence construction. So they might be lucky and, you know, they might be doing all their exams, they might be doing all their essays on a keyboard. Fantastic. But if they're not, then you might just go as simple as showing them how to write a letter. You know, you start at the top, you go down and you go round. You do your little tail at the end. All that kind of thing. You might be doing that with the very low levels, especially if their own alphabet that they grew up with is not the Roman alphabet, such as languages such as Chinese, Korean, that kind of thing. And then sentence correction, a subject, a verb, and an object, that kind of thing within a sentence. I can see the questions and they're lovely, and I'm going to get to them, I promise. Earlier you get them in. We're here for about another 40 minutes. Questions will be answered. So first thing that you might want to start teaching them, because it tends to be one of the easier things to do, is to do the content. It tends to be a bit more interesting than grammar and spelling and that kind of thing. So if you're going to, for example, show them, they come to you and they say they want to do a business English email. They want to be better at business English emails, and they want to be able to sell their product. To, you know, send an email, dear so-and-so, I have a great product that I would like you to look at and hopefully buy. Something like that. I'm not a businessman. I don't write many of these emails. But what you would do is you would need to get the content to fit the genre. Now, what does genre mean? It sort of means the style or the category of what they are writing. So what you need to do is think about, what does the receiver expect? So if you've got a Japanese businessman come to you and they want to sell their products to an American company, you have to think, what does the American company expect to get in the emails? And that might be different from what the Japanese to Japanese business might write. So the Japanese businessman might have an idea of the content he wants to put, and he might think that this is the best way to do it. But what you would need to do would be to teach the Japanese guy to write what the American business company would expect. Now, with academic essays, it's similar. You've got to think about the person reading. What do they expect? They expect you to answer the question. They expect to have citations. They expect you to have good paragraph structure, that kind of thing. If it's a friend, what does a friend expect? The friend's expecting the style to be quite informal, to maybe get to the point a bit more quickly, that kind of thing. And they need their writing, the students need their writing to match these expectations, to match the style and match the category of what they are creating. They have to fulfill the purpose. What is the purpose of why they're writing? Every time we write something, even if it's to WhatsApp someone on your phone, every time you have a purpose to write, yeah, to start a conversation. You're writing to the purpose to start the conversation. To send an email, you know, you're writing to inquire something, to complain, whatever it might be. You have to teach them to fit that purpose. And the final sort of thing to think about, especially for exam writing, is their target grade. So if they're coming to you and they're doing exam classes and you're teaching them exam writing, you would need to get them to hit a certain grade that they need. So IELTS starts at IELTS 1 at the bottom, all the way up to IELTS 9, for example. There are other exams up there, but for someone to get IELTS 8, it is different from what they would need to get IELTS 6. And you need to get them to get the grade they want, and you would need to show them the style, the genre that's needed to get that higher grade. So what you need to do is analyze the genre. And a lot of writing lessons start with reading. Tend to not just go straight in, right, hello, writing, let's go. There tends to be a bit of reading, even if it's a tiny sort of 10 minutes before they actually start writing. There tends to be a bit of reading. Now, there are other ways to teach writing without reading, but I think it's the best way to do it. And what you might do is look at good or bad examples of the genre. So let's kick it down a few levels away from the academic essays. And this could be as simple as if they've just learned some punctuation, you might put up on the board some sentences with good punctuation, some sentences with bad punctuation, and they have to decide, the students have to decide whether that's a good one or a bad one. Yeah. If it's a business email, you would give them a business email and a good business email and a bad business email, and you get them to read and try and decide why they think it's good, why they think it's bad. You're reading, looking at the genre that you're trying to teach them. And what is good, what is bad, and most importantly, they'd have to tell their partner why. So you've looked at that and you've hopefully decided that that A is better than B. So you discard B and everybody's now looking at A, the text that's A, and you say, right, what can you use from this text? Oh, I can use the paragraphs. The paragraph structure. Oh, I like this phrase, teacher. Oh, this is a good piece of vocabulary, teacher. Oh, look at the punctuation in this one, capital letters, full stops. I can use that, teacher. Perfect. You've opened up their eyes to good genres, to good examples of the writing. And it could be things like organization, it could be phrases, it could be vocabulary, as I said, that they pinch from the good example and they use in their own writing. And then now they've done a bit of reading of the genre from various levels, okay? And they now recreate it depending on the genre they've just read. They want to have the same style. They want to have that kind of thing. And then also the target that they're trying to aim at. And that might be 3 or 4 lessons away before they can create it perfectly, but they're building on it and they're trying to recreate it now. And they might take things like the organization from before, and they might, start planning their writing that they're going to create to have good organization. And some things that you could do, some little tasks like this would be, if you've got an academic essay, you give them 4 different paragraphs, you cut them up. They have to decide which would be the first paragraph, the second paragraph, the third paragraph, the fourth paragraph, or within a sentence. Just give them some words jumbled up, and they have to create the sentence by putting the words in the correct place with their partner, or even a whole text. And this works all the way down from the low levels up to the high levels. Vocabulary. So they're trying to create some good vocabulary. What you could do as a sort of activity for that, they've read the genre, they've looked at some good examples in their genre. You then give them a bad example where there's lots of repeated words. So let's say they're doing a paragraph about pizza, and within that paragraph you keep using the word pizza, 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 pizza. They have to highlight the repeated words and change it to it, change it to the food, change it to whatever it might be, to replace it and improve it. I'm going to Italy next week, so I've got pizza on my mind. And that's the sort of activity they could do with vocabulary. You could also do it with a writing they've done before. So if their vocabulary was bad in the previous example, you could highlight where they've repeated the word. Now, can they take some of the good examples from the genre and put them into their own text? Formality. You might give them some phrases that are quite formal or informal, depending on the target, and then they have to insert them correctly into a text, that kind of thing. Deliberate mistakes. This is another thing you might do where they're recreating it, is to give a text and the students have to fix the errors, depending on, and that could be sort of a grammar error if they looked at a genre where you were looking at grammar, or if it's a grammar lesson. Punctuation errors within a text, they have to fix the errors, that kind of thing, based on what they're reading and they've done before. Right, so then you give them a go at creating the text. So they've looked at a good genre, they've done some activities about it, and now they have to sort of try and create that themselves. Yeah. And the students create a draft. And a big part of writing is that they shouldn't try and create a perfect in the class. Now, hopefully by the end of the course, when they're in the real world, they might create it first time perfectly. But within the class, they should know that they don't need to make it perfect the first time they write it. So they're doing a business English email. they've typed in the business English email, they're writing out their English business English email, whatever it might be. And you have to say to them, look, guys, it doesn't have to be perfect. But what I want you to do is look at the genre we just analyzed, or the text you just analyzed. You might not use the word genre. And now you have to create it yourself. And they write it. Now, within the class, if it's a small number, or more likely afterwards when they're at home, afterwards when you're doing your marking at home. One thing I forgot to say is if you become a writing teacher, you lose a lot of your free time to marking. So you give something called global feedback as you're marking. And global feedback, I'll go a bit more into it on the next slide. But global feedback is where you're looking at the whole text. You're giving them some feedback about the whole text. And then you might give them something called the correction code. And this is a way of giving them some feedback where if they've made lots of mistakes, you don't just go through it with a red pen, crossing out the bad bits, making it look horrible with all your crossing outs or giving them X's, nothing like that. A good teacher would use something called the correction code. And here's some examples of the correction code. So the students wrote, as students written in their text, here's my pizza example again. Yesterday, I eat a pizza. Now, yesterday shows it's past tense. They should have used yesterday, I ate a pizza. And you would go through it and you would write in pen above it or to the side of it. Or if they've typed it, you might insert, in Microsoft Word, other word processors are available, something called VT. And what does VT mean? It means verb tense. And you give the students a paper where you show all these error correction codes. There's lots of these things online. You'll be able to find one if you just type into Google error correction code. And you say, right, because you could very easily just go in there with your pen and cross out eat and write ate, A-T-E. But that doesn't really help them. What you need to get them to do is correct the mistake themselves. So you go through, you do VT, and they go, oh, what is wrong with eat? Eat is problem. Verb tense problem. What is past tense of eat? Ate. And they write in ate. Congratulations. Well done for doing that. Today, I am going from the shop. Here's another example. We know that this is not so bad. Today, I am going using the present continuous for the future. Okay, fine. From the shop. I'm not not that happy with that one. So you would write something like prep. P-R-E-P, to show that they've made a mistake with their preposition. They go for, from, yes, I'm going at the shop. No, it doesn't sound right. Or let me look in my preposition book. To the shop. And then they correct it. Something like this. The chemical equation for water is H2O. You might write something like SP next to it. They go, oh, SP is spelling, I think. Yes, spelling. Oh, my spelling must be wrong. Let me look in my dictionary. Equation. And they go in and they correct it themselves. You haven't corrected it for them. So you've given them some feedback, and then you've given them, you say they then have to fix the mistakes in the correction code for their second draft. And they might do this in the lesson. They might do it outside the lesson. Depends on you and how you want to use your time up in the class. They look at any global feedback you've given them. So global is not at the word level or the sentence level. Global is at like looking at the whole text. And that might be some sentences such as your paragraph organization is not logical. Might be something like you haven't answered the question fully. But what you then need to do, and a good teacher will do, is give them some advice that, because if you just say you haven't answered the question, it doesn't really tell them much. And you might write a bit more about, like your second paragraph answers the question, but your first paragraph doesn't. Something like that, if you want to give them a bit more advice. But you should probably use some phrases like you need to add in more examples. You need to stick closer to the question in paragraph 2. Something like that. Phrases where they can actually see what they've done wrong. And you could use phrases such as you should look at past tense verbs. You should look at how to use prepositions. You should look at paragraph organization on page 22 of the textbook, or you should look at your notes from 3 lessons ago where we talked about this. So a teacher with good correction would not overmark. It's very, very easy when a student gives you a paper and it's got loads and loads of mistakes to just go through loads and loads and loads and loads and correcting all the mistakes. Don't be that person. Okay. Why? Because it's really demoralizing for the students, and also it's a lot of hard work for you. Good correction will also give positives. Don't be a negative Nelly, be a positive Paul. And also, you know, give them some positives. So your spelling was great. Your vocabulary use here was fantastic. Or your grammar was brilliant. Give them bad news in a sandwich. And what does that mean? So a sandwich is a piece of bread, some sort of filling, cheese, ham, whatever it might be, and then chicken, and then another piece of bread underneath. If they have two bits of bad news, give them some bad news to start, then some good news, then some bad news. So they've eaten a bit of good news, they've eaten a bit of bad news. Or the other way around, a piece of good news for the bread, the filling is a load of bad news, and then another piece of good news. Don't correct things they might not have been taught before. So if you've got an intermediate class and they're going mad with some really strong academic vocabulary that they're using really badly, don't be so tempted to correct that kind of thing. Try and correct the things that they should already know, yeah, or the things that you've covered in the lesson. Be prepared to explain. So if they're going to come to you and say, well, look, why is this wrong? You've got to be prepared to explain it, and also be realistic in your expectations. If you know, at the end, they've corrected the first paragraph, they've corrected one paragraph of the 4, and they've done that pretty well. You know, okay, maybe you wanted them to do all 4, but that takes a long time. You've got to be, how long have they got to pass the course? Don't expect them to be perfect straight away. Think of it as an ongoing process. Right. And I'm going to get to the questions in a minute. I know I've been babbling on a bit, but I hope you've been enjoying it. Please let me know if you are enjoying it. What is a typical writing lesson? So some sort of warmer to introduce the topic. So a picture on the screen, a headline, something like that to introduce the general topic that you're going to be doing. Then some sort of reading comprehension activity. So you give them some sort of genre. They answer a couple of questions about it, about the content, something like that. Then some activities to analyze the genre. So analyzing formality, analyze grammar, analyzing vocabulary, all that kind of thing. Activities like I shown previously on some previous slides. And from that, you would pick out the target for your lesson. So within the genre, don't put in, you know, if you might be able to, from that genre, look at formality, look at grammar, and look at vocabulary. But what's your actual lesson for the 1 hour you've got them looking at? Is it looking at formality? Is it looking at grammar? Is it vocabulary? Don't try and do it all. Try and do one thing to a good level and with lots of different activities. You do some activities around that one piece of target, and then the students add this into their ongoing work. So if it's an essay they're creating, they now sort of see if this new grammar you've taught them can be used in their essay that they're currently writing, or they create a new text based on the genre. Thank you, everyone, for saying that they are still listening. I like that. Thank you very much. Gina, I love your feedback. So that's a typical writing lesson. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, let's get to some of these questions. I'm just going to have a quick glass of water here. Let's get past all the hellos. The first question was from Cristobal. Hi. Do I know of any online platforms that specifically cater to teaching exam prep? So is this for you to, I'm going to take this one of two ways, Cristobal. Is this for you to learn more about becoming a teacher of those exams? Or is that for you to pass the exams? I reckon it's probably the first one, to become a teacher. Right. Now, if you type into Google, or I think there's other search engines up there. Have Apple got their own one? I don't know if Apple got their own one. I'm not an Apple guy. Right. If you type into Google, for example, IELTS prep, there'll be loads and loads and loads of websites, loads and loads of YouTube sites. And they vary very much in quality. And I tend to find that the ones that have that come up highest in the search engines tend to not have the best information, is what I have found in my 15 years of teaching. So what the best place to start is always the official website for that test. So Trinity have some information on their website for the Trinity test. Same with Cambridge, same with IELTS. Yeah, that tends to be the best. The second best thing to look at is textbooks, because a publisher won't pay someone to write a textbook who is not qualified, who doesn't know what they're doing. So definitely go down the textbook route if you can. That tends to be better. I understand that not everyone is near textbooks. I also understand that textbooks can be expensive, but look in your local bookshops, look online, look in your local library to see if they've got any English textbooks for the specific exam. Now, beyond that, you've got to use your common sense, Christopher. Look at the person who's made the video or who's made the website. Are they new to it? They're probably not going to be very good. Have they been doing it a while? They probably are going to be quite good. Look at the comments underneath. Discount the most flashy ones that you can find. That's what I always think. Good teachers tend to be not that great at tech. So go for the ones that have got good content and explain it carefully and have the student in mind, not the likes. Hope that answered your question, Christopher. The other ones, just so I can check, just to give you a bit more advice, Christabel, there is, if you go on like a website like Preply, or you go on a website like Verblin, you can then sort of choose what teachers teach. So if you want to find a business English teacher, you can go in there and filter for business English teachers or filter for exam English teachers. That might be the other thing you're thinking about, maybe, Christabel. If I haven't answered your question, Christabel, please do put that in the chat. Sophia, nice. How do we teach writing for kids? So, right, kids, how you teach writing for a 5-year-old is different to how you would teach writing for a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old. Some 17-year-olds are still seen as kids and are in kids' classes. So it does depend on the age you're going for there, Sophia. Right, the number one thing to think about with kids is topic. They're happy to write something that is kind of interesting to them. Now, that's quite difficult. So, because what Sophia is interested in is different to what Carl's interested in. I want to write about Bruce Springsteen. I want to write about Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Sophia might not want to write about that. She might want to write about her favorite author. She might want to write about her favorite film she's seen. So you've got to keep that in mind. And what you've got to do is firstly choose topics that they are enjoying, that they like. And if it's young kids, that's difficult. But with young kids, sort of below 7, that you're probably still teaching them writing letters or how to create sentences. And one way of making that interesting is to sort of play some games alongside of it where they get points, that kind of thing, or accuracy, you give them some sort of marks, you put them in teams, that kind of thing. You put grades up on the boards and you give them a point when they've got some good accuracy, that kind of thing. As they get a bit older, you've got to choose a topic. So try and keep, they like writing about things that are in there themselves. They don't really like to write about abstract things. So giving them topics such as a famous person you admire gives them a good range. And they can talk about Lionel Messi, but they could also talk about Taylor Swift. Yeah. So topic is the key thing, but also, put in some writing games. There's tons of writing games. If you type into Google EFL or ESL writing games, you'll find loads up there, grammar auctions, that kind of thing. All right. Hope that answers your question, Sophia. JMD Mendieta. Right. So this is a really difficult one, especially if you're going to be teaching sort of Asian students, East Asians, especially a little bit of Southeast Asian, although they tend to have a bit more ideas, but East Asian students, sort of Chinese, Japanese, Korean students, because when they're doing their academic essays in their own classes, their own, previously at high school, for example, they're not really judged on ideas, because what they need to do is just regurgitate what they've been taught. So the teacher would say to them, this is what you need to write. This is the idea. Your job is to get the grammar correct. Your job is to get the vocabulary spelling right. They then go to a Western style university, and all of a sudden they're expected to write with their own opinion, their own ideas, and also with IELTS. Right. So the first thing they've got to, how I like to do it is put a topic up. So I don't know, let's say you're doing economics. You write economics on the board, or if you can narrow it down, like the economics of Japan or China or something like that, that would be a bit better. But you put economics on there, and then they first of all have to brainstorm words associated in English that they associate with that topic. You then might put a very simple question. So, is the Chinese economy good? Is the Chinese economy bad? And they would write yes, because of course they think it is yes. You might get the odd one that writes no, but generally they would write yes. And you could say, and then you then have to get them sort of planning why. So why is it good? We have lots of factories. Okay, so that's the first idea. Why is it good? We have a good workforce. Okay, that's your second idea. Then underneath bullet points. And if they can't then expand on the bullet points of why having lots of factories is good, you give them questions. And the first question is why. So next week you go why, or question, for example, and you just have to get them to fill in a little sort of sheet, and then they get those sheets and they make the paragraphs or they make their essays out of that. So main idea, you've got to basically teach the main idea, supporting idea, and examples, that kind of thing. And then put up the questions. And if they're stuck, put up the WH, they're seen as in English question words, how, when, why, what. You put those up there and see if they can get any ideas from that, like what was the reason, or what happened, or who did it, that kind of thing, to try and give them some ideas. Hope that answers your question, JMD. Gina, hi. Nice question. Within the TEFL program, when we begin teaching online, is there a structure to teach from for your students? Good. Right. So obviously, if you do one of our courses here at the TEFL org, TEFL.org, if you want to know more about our courses, TEFL.org. Within that, we would teach you, if we would teach you the theory behind teaching. So how to teach grammar, or how to teach your skills, that kind of thing. We have special add-on modules you can do. If your thing is online teaching, you want to go into online teaching, we would teach you how to do online teaching. Okay, right. So that's the course. So the course will hopefully prepare you. Now, what I think you're asking for here, but I might be wrong, Gina, is you're asking for sort of lesson plans. And lesson plans vary depending on the type of skills you're going to be teaching. So if you're going to teach a speaking lesson, it tends to be slightly different than if you're going to teach a reading lesson. So it is different. Okay. But again, we would prepare you for that within our training courses. Yeah. If you are looking for specific materials, that really does depend on if you're going to go work for a company. They should really give you the lessons. They should give you the lesson plans, or they should give you a textbook to teach from. Or if you're going to go work for a company that's not going to give you any of that, you have to find it all yourself. That can take longer. Hopefully they're paying you more to do that. But that kind of thing, you basically just use the structure we have trained you to use, but you would have to sort of find your own materials. Gina, I hope that answers your question. Good. Thank you everyone for the lovely chat. But please, if you're not enjoying it, also put that in there as well. I'm a big guy. I can take the negatives as well as the positives. Hi, Sarah. You want to apply to the summer camps in the UK, but you don't know what to do regarding the visa situation. So I'm guessing you don't have a UK visa. Right. Difficult. If you don't have a UK visa and you want to teach in the UK and you want to get paid for it, volunteer work is slightly different. But if you want to get paid for it, it's really quite tricky to get a UK visa. Now, we have some in the UK, we have some short-term visas, but they tend to be things, quite specific sectors such as agricultural work. I don't know, but I might be wrong. I don't know of any specific short-term visas for to come work in the UK to go and work in the summer camp. Now, saying that, Sarah, I don't know what your original passport is. Yeah, you might be eligible to work on something called a working holiday visa. The UK does have some links with certain countries that allows people to come in on something called a working holiday. That would allow you to go and apply for the summer camps. But it really does depend where you are in the world, Sarah. Okay. Sorry if that didn't answer your question. The UK is not, in my opinion, there are lots of other opinions out there and they are just as valid as mine. Some are more valid. But the UK doesn't really, I think, have enough of these short-term visa situations. I think we should offer more. That's my opinion. Yeah, if you're from Portugal, so the first, if you come work for any company in the UK, the first thing they do is check your right to work in the UK. And I'm pretty sure Portugal isn't on that list for the working holiday visa, but I'm not a passport visa expert, Sarah. You need to have a look on the British government website. Oliver, hi. If a TEFL position only mentions an hourly rate of pay and says 2025 which in a week, which is about normal, 25 I would say is sort of the maximum that I would take on in a week, would any worked outside the hours usually be paid? No. Some do, but generally they don't. I have never, is that right? No, I think I had some companies in China, but they didn't pay that well back then. I have basically been expected to say, if I go work, right, so companies will either give you a full-time, if you're going to do 25 hours working for one company in 1 week, right, Oliver, they will either give you a set fee for that week. So they will say, right, you're expected to work 25 hours a week. We will pay you $500 a week to work those 25 hours. If they're then going down the route of saying to you, right, you're going to get 25 hours of work a week, we're going to pay you $20 per hour, then, or $10 an hour, whatever it might be. Okay. You've got to work out whether are you tied to them or are you going there on like a freelance type contract? But generally, no company will say, right, you get $10 an hour for the hour you're in the classroom, you'll get $5 for the preparation, you'll get $5 for the marking. Some do a little bit funny, sort of say, right, you'll get a certain bonus per essay you mark. But I really don't sort of think that that's pretty good, really. You know, so I think it sort of does depend on you, Oliver. Okay. So it does depend on the company that you're going to go work for, not you, Oliver. You wouldn't make up the own contract. I hope that makes sense. Natalia, oh no, you're going to make me think back to my masters. Right. Could I please explain the difference between process writing and product writing classes? Oh, I know process, but I've sort of forgotten product writing. Right. Process writing is basically like I explained about the drafts. So that you go through a process to get to the end, basically. Okay. So, you do your first draft, you maybe do the second draft, you maybe do the third draft. By the end of the third draft, it should be perfect and it should fit the genre that you're going for. Product writing. I'm not even going to try and quickly Google it and pretend that I'm going for it. I think product writing is more things like sort of exam writing. I might be totally wrong here. Product writing, I'm not looking like a TEFL expert at all here, am I? Product writing, I think, is when you're sort of giving them advice in order to pass an exam where they don't have a chance to do the process. So that would sort of involve things like proper planning of the question, and then at the end, if they've got a couple of minutes left, going back and looking through and correcting any errors then. Pretty sure. Natalia, if I'm wrong, let me know. People need to tell me when I'm wrong. Toyin, also thank you for that question. That's made me sweat a bit, Natalia. Toyin, if you have a 120-hour TEFL certificate as a non-native speaker, do you need to complete a TESOL So by TESOL, I think you mean like an English test before you can get a job online. Right. So you've got your certificate. Fantastic. Right. What you need to do is find out from the company you're going to go work for, Toyin, what they want. And I've done webinars about teaching English as foreign language as non-native speakers. There are options out there. I personally hate the sort of non-native speaker, native speaker discrimination. I just don't like it. But because it's not needed and it's not true a lot of the time. Right. The purpose of having an English certificate to show that you've got good English is basically you can say to them, look, hi, my name's Toyin. My first language is Portuguese. My first language is Spanish. My first language is Hindi, whatever it might be. But look, I can prove to you that my level of English is the same as a native speaker or almost as high level as a native speaker, or I am an expert user of English. Yeah. And if you can show them that, they hopefully will take that on and say, oh, do you know what, Toyin, you're a fantastic user. Let's just give you the same classes. Okay. That's what I think so. Right. Now, the other thing to think about, Toyin, is that some countries, they don't really care about the level of English of their teachers. What they care about is the passport that those teachers have. So China has, unfortunately, some restrictions on what countries can get a working visa. And they don't allow some countries, but they do. And within the countries where they don't allow, there are expert teachers. There are really high level speakers of English. But because the Chinese government has decided that certain countries can't come in on a working visa, that means more than actually your level of English. Okay. Good luck though, Toyin. There's loads of comments here, and I'm going to, yes, it will be here to watch for ages again, all of eternity. When I'm old and have even less hair, I'll be watching myself on YouTube in my glorious days. Deborah, hi. You've gathered lots of, that's just not even a question. It's just some lovely feedback to get me into the weekend. Thank you, Deborah. I hope, please, any questions, Deborah? Just, oh, you have got a little question. Next one. Do I feel a writing degree is essential to writing on a professional level and getting published? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think you need to have a writing degree. You might need to have a degree in, no, a lot. If you're going to get into TEFL writing, what they tend to want is experience, and then you sort of, your CV would show that you're a good teacher, and then that's what they tend to do. That's what the publishers look for more than the sort of degrees. Okay, but I don't really know much about that side of things, Deborah. Tanya, hi. Can I suggest any reliable websites, genre examples to bring to class? So the best genre examples are ones that you've created. So like, the ones that you've written yourself, really, Tanya, tend to be the best genre examples. Right. So a business English textbook will have business English genre examples. An IELTS textbook will have examples of an IELTS academic essay. Yeah, that kind of thing. Now, it does depend on the level, Tanya, because yes, this might be a perfect, absolutely amazing example of the genre that you found online, but can your students actually create that, or, is that way beyond them? Remember, you got to think of it step by step by step. So really what you want to see are good examples of the thing you're teaching. So good examples of coherence, good examples of formality. Yeah. Good luck, Tanya. Right, I think we're coming to the end. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Listen, I really enjoy doing that. Writing is one of my favorite lessons. It involves a lot of work, but it's something where you can really get students going and you can really see the improvement. It's also something that you will be expected to do if you're going to go teach exam classes, and exam classes are a big part of teaching. It's also a big part of why, if you're if you're a student and you want to pay for someone for some one-on-one teaching to pass an exam, you're probably going to get them to look at the writing. This has been part of a series of skills we've done. So we've covered reading, we've covered listening, we've covered speaking, we've covered writing now. If you've missed the others, they are somewhere on this page, LinkedIn page, YouTube page, Facebook page, in the video section, or the videos bit below, I think. Not sure where they are on LinkedIn, but they are there somewhere. And you we'll be able to find the ones we've done previously. And we've been doing these live webinars on a Friday for a couple of years now, covering a whole range of topics. So there's loads of videos with my big head on a range of topics where you might be able to find the answers. Please do give us a like and, tell your friends. Please do also write in this if you didn't enjoy it or you disagreed with me, or if you've got any ideas for our future ones. I am going to work in Italy for 2 weeks. Yay, lucky me. Starting next week. So there's not going to be any live ones with me. There might be with some other people, but they're probably, you've got to check the Facebook page, that kind of thing. We have podcasts to listen to. We've got loads of stuff on our website, TEFL.org. Go on there, do some searches. You'll find loads. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.